Hello, this is a trailer for my stream, Western Spiritual Idiocy, on the Awake Show. I'm Chris. I am a commentator on this channel and also someone who prays a lot along with everyone else every morning and evening. And I usually commentate on different aspects of modern culture and how it lines up with a more spiritual lifestyle, particularly a Christian spiritual lifestyle of great depth. And what's interesting is that when you experience God, your perspective changes and gets challenged in ways that are pretty unique for our culture. I mean, it's not that I don't believe in the gospel and in the teachings of the church and in the Ten Commandments and the Beatitudes and the commandments of Christ and all that. But I see a depth there, and I experience a depth of God's love to the point where um, the practice of Christianity and the point of it is really highlighted, and it turned into a very romantic and intimate thing, whereas that isn't always presented to be the case. And another thing I've discovered is that God is interested in practically every aspect of our life because He loves us so much. And all the little daily things we do, all of our troubles, all of our desires, everything. Which means that He's interested in all of our little habits, hobbies, sins, joys, sorrows, whatever. And I capitalize on that through that little window. I can see that He cares about all kinds of problems and attributes of our culture. Things that many people don't want to talk about, or things that people talk about or and think is hunky dory but is wrong, and things that people will try to be right or wrong on but don't get it completely correct. And this is one of the topics, right? This video is called "Is Weed Overrated?" and it's a trailer for a show I'm doing 1 p.m. Eastern this Saturday on the smoking shamans. The smoking shamans of America. And that's what it's going to be about. The title of it will be Smoking and Drug Obsession. And um, a lot of people, when they criticize recreational drugs, they seem to do it from what the government wants them to say, right? And this has been a problem ever since prohibition. The prohibition of alcohol was the first instance of that. You know, you have people who now alcohol, in terms of health, is actually more harmful than marijuana. There's no comparison. You know, you can't. There's very few cases of someone, if that I know, maybe an allergic reaction, but from what I don't see any cases of people dying from marijuana usage nearly on the same level as those who die very early from alcohol abuse. That's the truth. And even if you say, if you talk about impairment on the road, which, you know, I can see someone getting into trouble on the road from being stoned, uh, again, alcohol seems to be much more dangerous of a substance than marijuana, and I would know because I live in a place where people do both, and I can definitely tell when there's someone on marijuana in a car because they're going super slow because they want to take in all the sights and zen out or whatever. They rarely go fast, whereas someone who's an alcoholic for whatever reason tends to go way too fast and speed demons down the highway and can really do some crazy stuff. And then there are just people that are just nuts. You know, there's just big egos, which is bad enough as it is. Big ego is almost a drug in and of itself. So the secular argument, you know, and then they had this Reefer Madness movie where they kind of made marijuana look like PCP or something. Like it's, you know, they made it seem, they gave it the effects of marijuana qualities that are not the effects of marijuana because they want to discourage people from recreational drug use. Um, so that was a load of propaganda. And then you have some issues with the fact that smoking is bad altogether, which is true. But then again, people who smoke tobacco smoke more than those who smoke marijuana because the marijuana gives you an effect that lasts for a little bit, whereas nicotine is more addictive in terms of the physical addiction and the need to smoke more to get your mind off of things. So there's not much to be said there, and the people, the big advocates of marijuana, all of the um, the marijuana flags that are throughout the internet, that were throughout the internet in the early 2010s, right? They pretty much won the argument because there isn't much secularly you can say against marijuana compared to anything else, and they rightfully point out the hypocrisy. Um, all these Rastafarians, they're pointing out the hypocrisy of people who are against one form of addiction and they have all these other problems that are unhealthy, like alcohol abuse, like gambling addiction, like just other things, like, very unhealthy diets, um, not really putting a check on the pharmaceutical industry and the misprescription of opiates, and not carefully measuring it out, which are much stronger drugs. Oh, there's so much hypocrisy, and that's what I covered on a show just last Saturday, the hypocrisy of many people, because they're going by just what the current trend of what is bad is from the government, instead of going for the root problem of addiction. Okay? And then there's people, that's one side of the aisle. On the other side, there's people who act like there's no problems. They say, well, marijuana isn't a gateway drug to anything that bad, which I'm not too sure about. I don't know about that, especially if it's a teenager getting into it. Teenagers, let's say, aren't adults who will actually research or have the willpower to not get hooked into something worse. Um, on top of that, psychological addiction to marijuana, which you can find everywhere on the internet, can happen, even because many people idolize marijuana and they talk about like it's the philosopher's stone so much that when they start smoking, every time they want to relax or get their mind off of something, they smoke marijuana. And they start self medicating more and more, and it becomes a psychological addiction. So, and there's some bad effects to that. Paranoia, it doesn't, you need more and more of it to get your mind off things. Makes you cranky and irritable, you lose focus. So, there are some effects to it for sure that are negative. Um, and these people pushing marijuana like Snoop Dogg, they're just so ridiculous, and they're making it sound like this is some sort of ecstatic experience, and I'm here to tell you it isn't. Okay, I once dabbled in it, and to be honest with you, it did not live up to what my imagination was making it out to be. Um, so what is the argument against marijuana? Why is it overrated? Well, the reason is actually spiritual. There's first the Christian side of things. If you're a Christian, the reasoning is that you're a temple of the Holy Spirit, and actually God is saving you for much greater things in prayer and ultimately in heaven. And that's what we experience right here on this channel through contemplative prayer. A nerdy little joint does not compare to experiencing the bridegroom, Jesus Christ, loving you intimately, beyond all telling, and transforming your life, making you a completely different person. I don't hear anything like that. People that do marijuana still have aches and pains and are lonely, and they want to find love, and they want to succeed in life. It obviously doesn't solve those deep longings in their soul. Okay, I've never heard anyone describe the effects of smoking pot like that. And there's much stronger stuff than what came out in the 60s. You know, they hybridize stuff to have more of the chemical in it. You know, they use Mendelian genetics, and you know they mix a plant with another plant, another strain of marijuana to get a certain high off of it. And it's still, you know, I don't hear anyone talking like that about marijuana. Um, so that's the main reason. The other secondary reason is it does impair judgment, and it does make us susceptible to dumb ideas, and we're not supposed to do that. It can become an idol. You know, you're going to a drug instead of the Most High. Unfortunately, most people don't know how to interact with the Most High, so you know they quickly fall to temptation because they don't have a relationship with Christ, and therefore they wouldn't know, they can't see that there's something better, which was the whole point. All they know is the little morality they learn in church. That's their Christianity. So that's a big reason as to why Christians fall away into drugs and many other things. If they even learn anything about what I'm saying at all or experience it, you know, any sort of miracles or any sort of intimacy with God, and you don't hear about it much, you know. Um, and then there's another reason, and marijuana actually is a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug into shamanism because it's technically a hallucinogenic, and um, what I usually see people do when they smoke marijuana is they get into heavier stuff that are in terms of hallucinogenics like LSD, and then finally DMT, which is an actual shamanic substance. And there's also in between stuff like peyote and mushrooms and all this. And um, they are gatewaying into a pantheistic religion. You know, so how are they really being affected? Well, let's just say that many cults have been started through drug use. It's a great way to help hypnosis, but also because they're encountering a spirit world there that is associated with these pantheistic religions, they are adopting environmentalist and either environmentalist ideas, kind of South American ideas, or they go into Eastern religion, another kind of pantheism, like the religions we see in India, both of which have repercussions. You know, many people become vegan, which is a debunked diet. It is not that healthy. Many people are becoming malnourished through it, even though, yes, it's better than eating a bunch of fast food. It's still not the ultimate. We are meant to be omnivores. I don't care. You can argue with me all you want, but I truly believe that Mother Nature and just the reality of human beings. Look, we were made to eat animals. It's not just because that's the only thing we could do. It's literally a fact that there are certain things in animal meat that we need. Okay, um, and eventually you'll get deprived of nutrition. The other thing is this idea that um, people are equal to animals and vegetables, and we're all one, which is a huge precursor to globalism and population control. And that is a big, big problem. That's the true negative problem. That's the true end state of what I'm seeing. They're into um, anti human philosophies and even spiritualities where now the you know we're not one step below the angels. We're not the stewards of earth. We should be expendable for the sake of this nebulous balance that is pseudo-scientific. You know, they're not even that good at understanding pollution or anything like that. Because I'm against pollution, but they won't criticize China and other polluting countries. They only focus on one aspect of which is global warming, which is the most abstract of theories and the hardest to prove. And it's very strange. And at the same time, they're all into this kooky, you know, get rid of humans. Humans are bad thing. It's very sick stuff. Now, do these people realize it? Is it completely the drugs? No, I don't think it's completely the drugs, but I do think this altered state of consciousness they get into through these particular hallucinogenics open them to that because they have an immature spiritual grounding. They just want to feel good, and they kind of mimic whatever they think is spiritual or peaceful, and they quickly tack on all these other crazy ideas just because they have a good time smoking drugs, um, or doing drugs. So that's the summary of my discussion coming up on Saturday. I'll go into more detail, and I will be explaining what shamanism is. I took a course on it in college, and Joe Rogan is pushing it, and it's time to just blow open the cover on what it is and how it's blossoming everywhere and how no one knows what they're talking about. It's all part of some new age thing, which is superficial once again, and will have more repercussions in people's understanding. It's not good. That's my opinion. So there you go. That's what I think of it. I think both groups are silly. The new hippies that are like worshiping marijuana and trying to make it seem like the coolest thing ever. It is not the only way to experience great peace. In fact, it isn't even. It's nothing at all compared to God. And the secular arguments against marijuana are just not strong enough to convince anyone, really, except for people that are already super straight edge and traditional and wouldn't touch any drug anyway. So that's it. Hope to see you there. God bless.